Alrighty, welcome to another DFIR Python study group session class. And today we're gonna continue working on functions, on Python functions, and cover a few little new things that I think are gonna be useful as you start and continue creating your scripts and pulling artifacts out of your different evidence items that you might be working with. A quick recap of last class. We talked a little bit about the main function and used to determine where the starting point of your scripts will be. So you have more control of what code is executed and when. And we discussed last class that the code inside a function, whenever the interpreter sees def, this code is not executed. It's checked for syntax, make sure it's properly written, right? That you're not missing a colon or something. But it's not executed. It's kept in memory, and it's only executed when we actually do a call for it. Like, for example, like here, the highlighted part which says main, I'm calling that function. I want to execute this function. Therefore, it goes and then executes it as such, right? And we discussed how this special variable, this dunder variable name, the contents or the values will change depending on how you're executing your code, right? If you're executing your code straight up from the terminal, the script that you're executing, if you look at the contents of name, it will be called main, just like this. If you're executing, if you're looking for the values of this code, but your code was imported as a module, as we do here, then it's not gonna be main, it will have the name of the script itself. And in Discord, I placed a big long explanation of how that works and a little video that shows you the difference, right? When it shows main and with the same script will show the name of the function. And then I made some comments on why is that necessary. Don't sweat it. The idea of this that I show you about main is that you will see this in scripts that will come across your desk or across your computer. And at least you have an idea of what's going on with this type of stuff. At least you have oh, okay, I understand that this is checking and executing this function as needed. Okay, so that's a recap from last class. Oh, one more point about last class. We talk about making arguments to your script, right? And for that, we introduced in previous classes arguments to functions. Now we're expanding that to arguments from scripts. And we gave examples of those. When you can tell in this particular one, script that I have here, if you import the arg or argument parse function, it allows you to create a argument parse object here. And you can add arguments to it. In this case, the argument is going to be input path, defined as by the 2 dashes, and output path, defined by the 2 dashes, right? And if we look at what's inside this arguments variable, and I think we did this last class. I have the debugger on. Hold on, what did I do wrong here? Let me take this out. There we go. Debugger. I don't know. My English. All right. So if we look at the contents of this args object here, we see input path and we see output path, right? As defined here when you add that argument, right? And as we discussed in last class, you didn't see it here because my arguments, my editor, I put the arguments up here, right? And hopefully you remember that also from last class. So, and they're carried in these variables, and then I can use them as needed. Okay, now.
Can you actually show me that again? I'm sorry. I think you did show me, but if you don't mind showing like the argument where.
Yeah.
And the equivalent in another tool. Sorry, show that one more time.
Yeah. So let's look at it. Actually, let me open the actual directory where the stuff is. Oh no, yeah. This is important. So if we need to do it again, I'm more than happy to.
And also, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry for asking you to repeat. I like look at my computer while I'm doing my other computer while I'm doing this. So sometimes.
Yeah. Sorry. Oh, no problem. All right. So I'm in the right directory. Okay. So let's say so we're gonna execute our script, right? If I execute the script as is without putting any arguments, the script will let me know that, oh, I opened the wrong one. I apologize. Let me try this again. It's not the simple one, it's the regular one. There we go. So the way we implemented arg parse, right? There we go. So I executed the script. Notice that I didn't put any arguments, right? There's nothing to the right of the .py of the script name. There's nothing there.
Okay.
So the script tells me, look, if you're gonna, the usage for this script, you can use the H if you need help, and you need to provide under the by the letter -i, I mean -i, an input path, and -o, an output path. Okay. And notice it says they're required. You need to provide these two things for your script to work. And if you're like, well, what does that even mean? You know, then use the -h for the help, and it gives you more details. It tells you, oh, input path, path to input folder, output path, path to output folder, right? So how does our script know to show us this? How does it know that? Well, that goes back to the code that we're discussing, right? Mm-hmm. You, the coder, you said, look, this is the description of my program. For input path, this is the description you're gonna show under help. For output path, this is the description you're gonna show under the help. I wanna make it required, right? And I want the data that the user provides stored in this variable, right? Therefore, going back to the screen here, you see, path to input folder, that was right here under the help option here, path to input folder, path to input folder, as we define it in the odd argument. Okay.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, more or less?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. Now, in my editor, like if you're gonna make it like here, make it work, you need to, like, you know, actually provide the arguments, right? And again, like I said, I'm not lazy, I'm efficient. So I go and open my folder here, and I drop the input folder in my thing. There it is. And then I'm gonna, in this case, my output is -o, right? Yeah. Well, that's a 0.
-0?
No, O.
Okay.
And output folder. See, now I have the two arguments, -i, the path that's for input, -o, the path that's for output. And then I let my script go, and it works, right? And based on the code, you can see the output, and there's the files that I needed, or that the script generated. Okay. Now, in my editor, since, you know, I find I need to run the program multiple times, it has an option here that lets me set my arguments right here. Notice this? There's my, oops, it's all the way to here. Here's my input, and here's my output. Does that make sense, Brooke?
That makes sense.
Yeah, so when I hit run, my script has the arguments already somewhere. I don't have to do the whole typing or messing with it. I just hit run and it goes.
And that's sorry, that little like pop-up box is something that would appear in not Code Runner. Would that appear somewhere?
That's the one I'm using Code Runner, but this is the if you use the one from Microsoft, it's really good. I forgot, Visual Studio, I think it's called. There's places where you can do the same thing, right? The reason I'm not using the IDLE is because, you know, just to go faster, right? Mm-hmm. And also because I'm used to this. But you can, you know, you can run your scripts as we've learned from the IDLE if you want. Yeah. For now, I'm using Code Runner for my Mac, but you can get, I suggest you get Visual Studio for the community edition. Is free. You don't have to pay.
Oh,
yeah.
I like free. Okay.
Oh no, and it's really good. I mean, if I were using a Windows, that's what I would use. But again, that's just my preference. This is personal preference. All right. And part of the research from last class is look at arg parse and understand what these means, what odd argument means, right? When we use parse args, what does that mean? Which is kind of, you know, putting these arguments in a way that we can actually pull them out. So I gave you a little bit of homework to kind of figure that out. But at least for today, I want to show you here. When I hit print args, you can see here the input path and the value that I provided. And then you can see output path, kind of list-like way, right? And then show the output path. Now, notice here in my output path, I don't have a full path, right? I just have a relative path, dot output, right? That means that wherever the script is, it's gonna look for a directory called output right then and there. So let's look at it. A level up, I should say. So my script is in this directory we call multiple functions, so which is in my desktop. If I go a dot, I'll level up, here's out. Okay. So it's a relative path. Okay. Now, I'm showing you this to show you the new thing for today, okay? Oh, it's not output. I'm sorry, it's the same path. If it has, my bad. If I have 2 dots, it's a level up. I apologize. So I cannot change it here. It's up here. If I put another, I'm sorry, 2 dots, it's 2 levels up. There we go. But it's only 1 level up. So it's within that folder. And we're gonna confirm that in a second. So it will be right here, the output, this output. So let me delete this inside of this so we can show that it works as expected. Okay, so what am I teaching you today new? Okay, so we're using a relative path, right? We're not using the full-on path like from the beginning. If you're in Windows, it's not C:/user/ no. Or like in Mac, starting from users, no. It's just relative from where the script you're running is. And I did this on purpose because I want to show you a library that's included in Python called OS. And OS has a whole bunch of different functionalities, and it comes with Python. One of them is different ways of dealing with pathing or paths on your scripting. And this is really useful because it will help you deal with paths on Windows, paths on Macs, without you having to worry about the details behind it and the differences behind it, okay? So to show you one example of the usage of os.path, we're going to start with one that's called abspath, and not abs as a six-pack, abs as absolute paths. So what it does is it will take the file, the location of the file that we're providing, and it will give you the absolute path of it. So how does that look? So it makes sense because me explaining it verbally doesn't help us much. To make this faster, I'm not gonna call our function so we don't get output to the screens. Let's do that. And that way I don't have to be scrolling up and down so much. Actually, let me leave this one as is. Okay, this should do it. Okay, let's run it. All right, so what do we see here? So I only did it for which one? Where are we? Absolute path. Where's my print for the absolute path? There we go. All righty. So notice how here, when I print output path, it gives me the whole path. You see that? But I did not provide this part. The only thing I provided, and look at my argument, is dot output. You see that? But if I provide that to my script, this location, this relative location, absolute path, if I use this functionality, will provide me with the absolute path the whole way down where this file is located in my operating system. If that makes sense, give me a 1. All right. And this is really, really, really useful for many different reasons, right? Most of my scripting, I use relative pathing because I want things to be kept within that same folder. So that way I can take the folder and move it out and do things with it and, you know, and not have any issues. But sometimes you do need to get the full path because you might want to do something, you know, a level up in this folder. So how do I know what's the folder up, you know, the one, where is this located, you know, upstream? Well, you can do an absolute path and then look for it, okay? Now, we're not gonna get into that now. I just wanna show you this example of, look, this is a functionality called absolute path that helps you with it, okay? Which I think is pretty neat. And we'll be introducing more OS functionality as we go through the course. This is the first introduction to it. So I import OS, and I use the pathing function, and from the pathing optionalities, I want absolute path to get the full path to where it's gonna place it, okay? Now, the second thing I'm gonna show you today is a simple basic error handling, okay? The first step of error handling is, as a coder, you gotta think, what will your script do if somebody does something that you don't expect or is not supposed to be done, okay? In most of our scripts, it's us pretty much running it for ourselves, so it might not be needed, but it's good to start adding that if you plan on giving your scripts out to somebody else to use, okay? Usually when you don't have error handling and your code goes through an issue, your code just dies, like it crashes and you're done, right? So the next level, and not today, in the future, soon, we're gonna discuss what happens when there's an error, how can we deal with it, and have our script continue to work, which is what we want, okay? But for now, I'm just gonna introduce basic error handling and actually stopping our program to show the error to the user. That's what we're teaching today. We'll build on that. So as we discussed, our program, our script is receiving inputs now, arguments. And the moment we receive arguments, it means that we're expecting the user to do something, to provide us something. The user might provide us something good. The user might provide us something bad, or might not provide us anything at all, right? So we have to take that into account and adjust accordingly. For example, let's do a couple of examples here. Let's do this one here. I have here, after the arguments are provided, which is this section, I'm gonna start doing some checks. I'm gonna check, okay, the variable output path, okay? I'm gonna check how long it is. And you know, by long, I will take the string and just make sure that that string is, see if it's equal to 0, right? If it's equal to 0, and this lang we discussed this before, right? This function tells you if it's a list, how many items are in a list. If it's a string, how many characters are in that string. So we're gonna check. If there's no characters in that string, that means that what? We didn't provide an output folder. So we need to run the program again. And we do a return to stop our main function. And since there's nothing below main, we're done with the script and it just stops, okay? Second conditional, okay, let's check now the input path. If the input path has nothing, right, it's 0, right? If the length is 0, then you didn't give me any input. Same thing, return, nothing. There's nothing below the main, so the program stops, okay? And last, and this is the one, we're gonna do this one. If not, that means it's a negative, and we're introducing this today, right? Not. If os.path exists, right? If this path does not exist, then I'm gonna tell the user it doesn't exist, run the program again. And notice again how I'm using os. And this functionality is fantastic. And it gives you yes or no, right? True or false. If the path exists, that means that whatever I provide, it will check if that path exists in the file system. And built on what we discussed here, right? With absolute path, it takes the relative path and gives it the full thing, right? Well, it can take my input path and it makes sure that it actually exists if it's actually there. So let's do an example of that. I'm gonna change here. Let's change my input path and let's put something that doesn't exist. Let's just take the T out of input. So that directory doesn't exist. I'm gonna close it and let's run it and see what we get. Notice here, input file folder does not exist. Run the program again, which indicates that this is the line that's being executed. If that makes sense, give me a 1. All right, and this is kind of a little bit of error handling, right? Depending on how we have done the script, we might have just showed this to the user and continue working down here, you know, additional code down here, and it will be executed, right? As an example. In this case, we decided to stop the program. Well, now, if there were no error handling, the program would have just crashed and give me an ugly error, right? So actually, I haven't crashed it, but I can tell you, me crashing a program, that's no issue. That's something I can do with my eyes closed. All right, so I took the error handling out. I left the wrong path in anyways, and let's see what happens. So it gives you like this long or ugly error, right? Trace back this line, you know, there's no such file and directory, and it's telling me it doesn't exist, and that's it really all this message here. It crashed, nothing else happens, okay? And even if I had code down here that I wanted to execute, right? If my program had this issue that you see here, the program is stopped. Nothing else gonna happen afterwards because I did not handle that error. I just let it out there dangling in the wind, right? In this case, this would allow me, if I chose to execute additional code below it because the program didn't crash. I just told her, handled it. I said, look, user, you're missing this, do it again or or whatever. Okay. All right. Hopefully that's clear enough. There we go. So let me put the T back on this. Right. The third thing, yes, the third and last thing we're going to discuss today is going back to OS, another functionality, which is super, super, super awesome. I like this one a lot. It's called listdir, list directory. And to show you this, I'm gonna make sure that all my other prints are out because I want it to be kind of clean. Yeah, I don't have any other prints out. Okay, so what does this do? This is pretty awesome. If you provide os.listdir, if you provided an input path, a directory, it will go into that directory and list all the different things that are in it, right? And it will provide it here to this variable. And then you can iterate through the variable to see what's in it. And notice how I'm using all these words, iterate and returns it and provides it. You know, these are words that by now you understand based on what you learned in class. I'm gonna go further. I'm gonna actually here look at the type. What's the type that we're expecting there? And isn't that awesome that you know this also? When I talk about type, I don't have to explain it too much because you know what it is. Oh, item, I can't write. Excuse me. So let's see what happens when we do this. All right, look how neat this is. So, so I execute this line here, right, with my in the input path, and we know the input path is the folder that the stuff is in, and then file list. And actually, I shouldn't. Well, items are strings. This is not what I intended. What I intended to do actually was, I apologize. What I intended to do is have the type, the file list type. That's what I intended to do. This is what I intended to do. Okay, let me do it again. There we go. So what I do is we say, okay, give me all the different items inside, you know, files or directories inside this input path that I provided, and give them and put them in files list. Well, I check the type, and effectively it is a list. You see that? And if I went to just kind of ugly print that list, here's my list with the bracket. And where's the bracket end? Ends here. And we're gonna check that now. So in this path, we have this file called kick.db, one called dsstore, which makes sense because I'm on a Mac, and another file called discordchest.json. Let's confirm that. The path is in this folder, multiple functions input. So let's look inside of it and confirm that's correct. Input, there we go. You have the kick database, you have the JSON, and you're saying, oh, but we're missing one, right? Where is dsstore, right? Where is this one? Well, notice that it has a dot in front of it. And if you're familiar with how Mac OSs work, those files have a dot as a starting point. They're hitting from your view. They're there. They're just hitting from the operating system, from the user view. And DS stores, there might be some forensic value to these, but that's another discussion for another day. The point is that with Python, these stuff like this is not hidden to Python, right? It will see it, and you can handle it and deal with it if you want, okay? Which is pretty neat. Now, like it doesn't depend on the operating system view to get at stuff. Okay, so look how cool this is, right? I want to know what's in this directory and give me a list of it, and it's just by calling os.listdir, list directory is or the directory of the stuff in it, I should say. And right, and then I print. In this case, I printed. I'm gonna delete this. I don't need it anymore. I mean, I want to print each little item inside that list, which we've done already. And notice, in this case, I noticed that the data here either ends in DB and ends in JSON, okay? All right, and the reason you see it twice is because I have another print. I have two prints here, which, there we go. There we go. So you see in that directory, we have a DB here and a JSON file here, right? Now, You know what? I can explain this in a few more minutes. Let me explain this now, and then we're done for the day. And we're done actually with this whole thing, and we're done with the script. So in this directory, I have a mix of different files. I'm gonna use the extension of these files to be able to identify uniquely, so I know what to do with them. So I'm gonna use a functionality called endswith. And I know it's a lot of stuff for today, and we need to review this again next time we'll do it, but this is also pretty neat. When you look at endswith, if you have a variable and you end it with endswith, and you put how it ends, it will identify that file, okay? So for example, let's go here. I'm gonna print here, so it makes more sense. I'm gonna put a print statement here, really neat print statement. I'm gonna put here, this is not indented correctly, there we go. Print, and I'm gonna print here item, but actually what I'm gonna do is, I wanna put here inside ends with, okay? I think this should work. All right, so notice this. It looks at the stuff inside the folder. It gives me a list of the contents, imprints all the contents, which we have in 1, 2, 3 right here. And the other print afterwards is this one. If item, right, is the things that I'm looking through. If one of them, or if they end with .json, then show it to me, print it, and here it is. Notice that? If I wrote here s.json, guess what? You get the same result because it ends with s.json, right? But if I put a D here, right, and I go at it, it's not gonna execute, right? Because there's nothing in the files that I'm going through that ends with d.json, okay? So this functionality here will look at whatever you're providing here in this variable and making sure that it ends with what you have here at what you defined within the parentheses, okay? Does that make sense? Give me a 1. If not, give me a 0, and I'll try to make it better. Okay. And this is pretty neat because now, talking about making a code more of general use, I can then in one folder, I can throw all my DBs for Kik, all my JSONs for Discord, and then I just pick them out based on their extension. That's one way of doing it. It's not the only way of doing things, of picking out a file from the rest. You can do it by pathing. Like if this file name is contained in this folder and in this folder and in this folder, you know, then give it to me. We can do that as well. But for now, the big teaching point is I can go through and list what's in a folder, and I can then pick out specific things from that folder, things that end in JSON, and in this case, things that end in kik.database.db. Okay? And this makes my code more general use because I just point my code to the input folder, and then my code, if it's JSON, it will make sure it calls the JSON functionality. If it's the Kik database, if it ends with, you know, kik.database.db, then it will call out to the functionality, right? The code that actually handles the Kik databases themselves. And that's not here, that's in parser functions, as we discussed in last class. It just calls the code and executes it. Now, here, the last part of the whole script, I'm using what's called, and I will leave this for you for homework, for your own self-edification. So I'm gonna explain it briefly, but you need to do some reading on this. os.path, there's also a functionality called join. What it does is, it, actually, you know what, I was gonna leave it for homework, but I might as well just do full prints and just show you. Okay. All right. So what it does is it takes the path that we're in and then adds whatever you have in this variable in a way that's compliant with pathing, okay? Like for example, I'm gonna make a quick, open a quick tab here so we don't get all mixed up. if you have the path users Abrignoni, let's just imagine, and we have here a folder called Python. That works, Python, whatever, right? And then we have here a thing called chats, txt. When I use the join functionality, what it will do is it will put in the variable that's receiving the output of that functionality, it will put all the stuff that I have here, right? And add that thing, and it will look like this. And let's confirm if I'm correct or not. So this is the expected output after we use join. So let's make sure it's correct. So let's run it. Oh, I didn't. Well, let me hide this again so we are able to less output here to make it easier to read. So let's ignore the parsing functionality for now, and let's do it again. Okay, so this is the line. So there we go. And right? And you're like, Alex, that makes no sense. Well, let's go through the code real quick. Remember, we're printing every item as we're iterating to the list. So the first one is my kick database, perfect. Does it end with JSON? No, it does not. It ends with kick database, perfect. So let's execute some code here. Well, I want to take os.path.join, which is the input path. And remember, input path is only from here to here. And if you don't believe me, look at your arguments. This is what I provided for my input path, okay? And I said, okay, I want to join from that input path the item. Item is what's inside here, that's what we're iterating with, which is the name of the file. And you see it right here, right? So it joins them and it puts it in this format. And you're like, well, isn't it easier to just say, hey, take this string and add a slash to it? Yes, but the good thing about using os.path.join is that the way Windows might look at that path might not be in the same way, or Linux might not be in that way. But when you use path.join, I don't have to worry about, is it a slash, backslash, or whatever it is. Python will make sure that it makes it in a way that's compliant with the OS. So I don't have to worry about that. About making a code for Windows, making a code for Mac, making a code for whatever. It just joins it really nicely. Okay, so and I'm teaching you this, going to past comments on, well, what are the differences between Windows and how do we handle them? As long as we use the functionality that Python brings us for pathing options, we should be good. You don't have to worry about this code not working on a Windows or not working on some other operating system. Okay. And just to round out the code, what I'm doing is I'm taking this full path, which is gonna, where my stuff is that I'm gonna work with, and I call it. Let me just show you something here. I had to take this out and take this out. Okay. So the thing that I do next is the item name. In this case would be this one. I add .txt, and I add .txt because I want my output when I print to my file to be called, let me just do this real quick. Print full path out. Okay, what I want to do is, and again, since I opened the whole thing, but it don't matter. It's gonna be on the top, hopefully. There we go. You see this line here? I wanted my report to be named just as the file, but with an ending of txt. That's why I took the item name and added a txt. And we learned this already. We learned how to make strings, add things to strings. We're using the plus sign. This is not new to you, right? And then I joined it with the path. So that way, when I do my print, I'm gonna say, okay, this is how the file is gonna be called, and this is the stuff you're gonna put inside the txt file. Okay, and this functionality here, the function, we discussed it already, so I'm not gonna go into it. It's on the code that I shared with you. And we're done for today. So we covered also a lot of ground. We went into details, how to do arguments, basic error handling, just keep in your mind that if you expect users to put stuff in your code, to provide stuff to your code, information to your code, you have to assume they will provide the wrong thing. And you gotta make sure that you're able to handle that wrong thing so it doesn't crash your program, okay? We learned the OS and some of this functionality. For example, how listing directories, which is super useful and you'll use it a lot. We learned how to use endswith to make sure we're able to identify files uniquely by their endings and as long as an ending as you want. We discovered how to use join to kind of abstract how pathing is done by the operating system. You don't have to worry about it. Just provide the path and whatever you want to add to that path, join it, and you're good to go. And we learned here another implementation of pathing is I want to have a path to a file that ends in txt. I can use join and then provide that path and file name to my function, and my function will create my report accordingly. And that's how it looks right here in my output folder. If I ever go in it, you will see, let me open it this way. I think it's a little bit, oh, no, this way. There we go. You will see the database.txt and the json.txt. And if we open it, is the output we'd expect from our reporting from our function. Okay, I'm gonna pick on you again, Brooke, because you're my partner in this. Is that clicking, not clicking? What do you think?
Sorry, that clicks for me.
Good. All right. It says here, so it will join correctly where you had a slash and not or no slash on your input variable. That's a great question. If you have a slash at the end, or let me I'm gonna explain it verbally, but I have the computer here. I might as well show you. If you're gonna go here, for example, if this input path, right, has a slash here at the end, and you try to use join, it's not gonna work. Okay. Your directory that you're gonna join cannot have a slash at the end. It's gonna crap out. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, I mean, if it is, yes. It depends where you're getting your path from. But if it, and that's really easy. Like how do I take the last? Let me put it this way. I say easy, but we're not gonna discuss it today. But I'm gonna show you later, based on your question. It's a good question. I'm gonna show you later how we can go and say, okay, I have a string here. I want to check if what's at the end. If what's at the end, you know what? Let me put it this way. Do it yourself. You can do this. You have enough knowledge of this. Take a string, check if it ends with a specific character, and if it ends with a specific character, take it out. How do you do that? You can do it with the knowledge we discussed so far, or you can use just a function in Python just to strip the end of things, which I also taught you. Okay, so there's ways of doing that, of checking if it ends with, which I showed you today, if it ends with a slash or with whatever it is, and how to strip it or take it out. So you can do it yourself, and it's just maybe a line of code. So again, it depends where you're getting your input from. So that's hopefully that answers the question. And there's reasons for that. Like, well, why does it do that? And honestly, I don't know the reason off the top of my head, but I think it's because it doesn't want to join to an not empty direct. No. And honestly, I don't want to lie here. I have to look it up. And I looked it up in the past, but I'm not gonna do it now. You look at my calendar. I'm not gonna do it now. I'll give you that info for next class on why join doesn't want to do that. There's a reason for it. I just don't remember it, but I'll look it up. All right, so that's what we got for today. I'm gonna quickly discuss what pages are we gonna cover for the upcoming courses. We're up to chapter 5. We're almost at the middle of the book. Chapter 5 starts on page 195 of the book. And for next week, go all the way, it's not a lot of pages, but to page 211. And the reason I'm not gonna go through a lot of pages is because as I went through the pages, I myself need time to read this, like to really go into it, because decorators, and I'm really weak with decorators. So I'll be honest with you, I'll be doing as much learning as you all will be doing this weekend as you go to the pages, okay? So it'll be a pretty interesting experience. And again, if I don't know something, like always, I'll tell you I don't, and we'll work together to get that knowledge. And then for Thursday, more pages. It will be from page 211 all the way to page 242, which is the other chapter. I think we might not be able to cover it all the way on Thursday, and that's fine. We'll just work through it as we're able to do it, at the speed we're able to do it. Again, it's not like super forensically, but forensic-y, I should say. But I will keep adding stuff like what I show you today, to make it more applicable. And that's that. Comments, questions, suggestion. If this is clear, please give me a 1. Okay, I will be posting. Excellent. I will be posting the pages and a picture of the pages for people that have the PDF or whatever, the non-physical book, so you know where to stop. So I'll put those pages, and the video from today's class will also be up. Brooke did us a great favor in my blog, abrignoni.com. You can find the syllabus. It's a rolling syllabus, and that link is also in the Discord channel. For people that might not, let me see if I can.
Let me see. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember if I updated it from the last class for the blog yet. I'll update it. And then also on Discord, it might be a good idea, like someone had suggested, to pin the homework assignments, so people don't have to scroll through all the chats. So I started doing that for homework when I noticed homework, so that might be a good idea to do.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, we'll definitely do that. That's a great idea. So for people who are watching the video, if you want to look at the syllabus, you can go here to the to this link. I will put the link also in the description of the video as well, so you can follow along with past classes. So that's all I got for today. I'm gonna start the recording. Thank you so much.